Today's prayer, Holy Week prayer. Almighty Father, I thank you for the gift of your Son, Jesus Christ, who rose from the dead and redeemed humankind. Fill us with the fire of the Holy Spirit, that we may be faithful disciples, enthusiastic witnesses of our faith. Hallelujah. Christ is risen. He is risen indeed. Amen. Linda, you got to start us now. Okay? The minutes. Commissioner's office requesting the board approve and execute the minutes of meeting April 1st, 2025.
So moved.
Second.
Commissioner Spudler.
Aye.
Commissioner Brady. Aye. Commissioner DeWort.
Yes.
Good morning. Adrian Gorton, Commissioner's Office. Today's financials include a supplemental in the airport construction fund in preparation for an expenditure for the building of new T hangars. There's a cash transfer from the general fund Commissioner's miscellaneous levy reimbursement account to the JFS Children's Services transfer in revenue account for the first half Children's Services levy reduction payment. There's an encumbrance of travel requests from the Clerk of Court's office to attend the June, July, August, September, and October 2025 Ohio Clerk of Courts Association meeting. Among the vouchers is $28,055 from Job and Family Services to Preston Ford for a 2025 Ford Escape replacement vehicle, replacing a 2014 Jeep Patriot, which will be auctioned, and $98,143 from Water Resources to the Ohio Water Development Authority for the McFarland Wastewater Treatment Plant improvements debt admin expenses.
Thank you.
Make the motion.
Second. Commissioner Spudler.
Aye.
Commissioner Brady. Aye. Commissioner DeWort.
Yes.
Thank you very much.
Item 3. Good morning.
Good morning.
Morning.
Chuck Walder, Geauga County Auditor's Office.
Frank Anthony, GADP.
I'm here today to clarify a series of questions and or comments that the board has expressed in the past couple of 3 months. And for some, I apologize that some of this may be repetitive or redundant. I know each of you as commissioners serve in different capacities on different boards. And as such, you have inside knowledge, so to speak, about why things occur and the background of those things. So I'm hoping to clarify for the board's benefit that you're all on the same page with some of these matters. The first topic that I'd like to clarify is the subject has come up repeatedly on ADP salaries. And to put things in perspective, I'd like to remind everyone that in January 1st of 2024, so a little over a year and 3 months ago, this board, through a resolution, and I believe Linda was involved in this activity, transferred archives and records under ADP. And in doing so, I know Commissioner Dvorak, who served on the Archives and Records Board with me for many years, recognized and understood that one of the challenges with the Archives and Records facility in general was that the payments that we were accruing and the salaries that we were paying for people doing that work was, let's just say, substandard. So we did do an immediate salary review upon that falling under ADP, and I'm happy to report we did find they were competitive. Unfortunately, they were competitive with the fast food industry. So as you could imagine, my concerns really centered around how can we retain these employees? How can we fill vacancies when we get them? And how do we build morale so that people want to come to work and do a good job and work a full day? So I immediately authorized the increase of salaries in that segment of ADP to become competitive with the market. So I'm happy to report that since doing that, I rate their performance stellar. I have received 0 phone calls, which is my measurement of performance, 0 phone calls of complaint. I have talked to other elected officials who are using the services of Archives and Records. My own department, less than 2 years ago, had 300 to 400 boxes of records that were scheduled to be shredded that were not being shredded. I'm happy to report that those matters have all been cleared and cleaned much due to the systems that were put in place by Linda when she was serving in the capacity of director, but it carried forward with the new team and group. So I'm happy to report that that's working. Regarding ADP technical personnel and their salaries. So again, this is something that I am very near and dear to because that was my profession for almost 25 years. ADP's technical people are paid under market. And I've compared them to both other local governments who are competitors of ours. I've compared them also to the private sector. And by far, the private sector could offer any of our employees much more money with adequate benefits and pull them away from us, causing us to have to reinvest in the education and training of those personnel. That's something that I am concerned about daily. I know you all feel that same pain in other areas of government. And as public servants, our job is to balance the payment scale to being able to retain competent employees and perform the duties that we have to perform for the people. So, in that regard, I'm happy to advise you that, although we believe they are paid below market, we do believe we have a team that is motivated and is addressing concerns related to issues surrounding the county. And I don't see their need in the county to be diminishing. Based on cyber threats that we are seeing daily, as recently as yesterday, to the variety of other technological improvements that are being made, including AI, our requirements for these IT professionals is going to continue to grow. We could have personal opinions, which we believe that maybe we don't want that to happen, but unfortunately, that is not in my wheelhouse to be able to control. From me, the IT issue is, I guess, less concerning from a standpoint of it. I'm used to IT. I'm used to technology. I embrace it, but I appreciate and understand not everybody does that. So I guess I am concerned about one item, and that is, the ADP board does review the salaries of all the employees and the functions of the employees. And we come annually before the Board of County Commissioners, and our requests in our budget are vetted. And I personally have experienced that they've been vetted for a given year multiple times, which I'm not complaining about. But I do find a slight disconnect when it's selective. And so what I would encourage this body to consider is it's not just ADP whose salaries should be vetted or whose expenses should be vetted. There are other agencies that you appoint people to. There are people within the county that serve and draw money from the general fund who frankly have been able to waive their budget hearings on an annual basis. Yet they can invoke any salary increases that they think is appropriate without any oversight and without any accountability to you or the taxpayers. So I think selecting one department to hyper focus on, while you're certainly able to do that, I think, doesn't really serve the public to its full extent when you allow other agencies get away with not having to do that. The second topic that I want to discuss is probably one that's near and dear to everyone, and that's the AV equipment in this building. So I am a bit perplexed as to the fact that there still apparently seems to be confusion as to how we got here. Because I think it's been widely publicized of why the AV equipment is in the state it's in. Fundamentally, that all of the decisions of this AV equipment in this building were made outside of ADP. ADP was not integral to the decision-making process of building this building. And I'm not here to cast aspersions on that process. I'm just here because I don't want history to be rewritten to all of a sudden assert that ADP somehow placed these monitors on the wall and we designed the back end of those monitors, and now we're being held to account for why they don't perform. I think we all know why they don't perform. Somewhere in the system, whether it was in the BOCC office or its staff or the owner's rep or the vendors, they made specific decisions. And those decisions may or may not have been in our best interest, but they certainly were not vetted by the technology house within the county. And even though those things in this building that were vetted by ADP, what we have found was when they were purchased, They were purchased after being changed. So I'll give you a good example. We had a long-standing battle with the commissioners a couple of years ago over the key card access system. And I have had the opportunity now to review all of the records that the board has reviewed and approved. And it turns out that the ADP board did approve a key card system. It just didn't approve the one that was installed. We approved a key card system that was cloud-based. And the cloud-based would have enabled every elected official and every hiring authority to have independent control over the access of those key card systems and do so without ADP intervention. Unfortunately, that's not what was purchased and that's not what was installed. We got what we got. And I would rather move forward to how do we fix that? How do we make it workable rather than continue to try to revisit history to say, well, why wasn't ADP involved in that? I don't know. My involvement with this building really started when after construction occurred and I reviewed the prints and I found that there was no facility designed in this building for ADP. So I approached the Geauga Public Health and I worked with the Geauga County Health to negotiate some of their space for a minimal staff of ADP people. That's how it evolved. That's not the right way of designing a building, and I think we all recognize that. But unfortunately, that's what happens sometimes when you do major projects. So I guess I want to make sure it's clear that that particular component, while we're willing to fix, we don't own the problem. We will own the solution. And I'm here to tell you, our intention is to dig into this, but we have to weigh that investment of resources with all of the other things that ADP has on their plate throughout the entire county, and we have to prioritize. So everybody in this building has lived with these pieces of equipment in all of their facilities not being operational, and certainly not operational to the degree that we want. The third item I want to discuss is the live streaming and its costs. And I guess just for a matter of clarity, I just want to point out that prior to January of this year, I have never been approached by the Board of County Commissioners to propose, put in place, or recommend a live streaming solution. As a matter of fact, the feedback that I've gotten from the Board of County Commissioners prior to January this year was they did not want live streaming. So it was very clear to me that that was the path going down. And I think it was even evidenced by the equipment that was placed in this building, even though not within ADP's oversight and review. Even the very equipment that was placed in this particular space was not equipped to do live streaming. I think you've all said that in various meetings. So clearly there was no intention of doing live streaming. When Commissioner Brakey approached ADP and myself asking what are her options, we provided a series of options, some of which were temporary and some would be permanent, but not immediate. This board elected to take on the temporary and not an immediate solution rather than the permanent and longer term solution. However, you asked us to then investigate the permanent solution, and we've committed to do that by the July timeframe. And I think, and I want to speak for Frank, but I think we are on target to do that. And so I want to go through the cost associated with that live streaming. So as a comparative basis for you, our experience with YouTube live streaming is very minimal in the county. The most similar approach to doing this was our providing live streaming for the Department of Health. And that was done through a request by them. They wanted live streaming and they wanted it YouTube capable. We outsourced that work. So we hired an outside firm that specializes in that work, and the cost to ADP for performing that was approximately $1,000 a meeting. So when Commissioner Brakey and the board decided we want to do live stream meeting, I didn't think that was a cost-effective alternative. So I asked Frank, can we do it in-house? And he said, yes, we can. It may be awkward at first, but we're going to learn. And I think the advantage of learning is it saves money in the long term. So currently with 2 people doing the live streaming, it costs the county approximately $150 a meeting. So we're already much less expensive than what we were providing the almost identical service to the Department of Health. Now, the reason we have 2 people is, and again, we're kind of micromanaging the actions of ADP to some extent, but I understand the question. The reason we have two people doing this work is because I believe in redundancy. And that comes from the auditor world. You don't have a single point of failure. People get sick, people take vacations, people have other commitments they have to take on. And when they do that, what I don't want is to show up here one day at 9:30, especially today, and not have somebody running the live stream. And so that was a commitment I made that I would provide that service. And I thought the best option would be to have duality of function so that in the event that somebody couldn't make it, somebody could back it up. And because this is a learning experience for ADP, I want them both to go through the process and see where the hurdles are so that when we give you a permanent solution, we have less issues to contend with. Now, that's a business decision that I made. I made it on your behalf, but I don't think that particular material cost is significant enough to warrant not performing that function in that manner. So based on the alternative being $1,000 per meeting. The last thing that I want to address is something that is very concerning to me. This is probably the impetus of why I felt it important that I come to the meeting personally. And that is to, I've learned through watching the YouTube obsession late at night when I have nothing else better to do. Yeah, can't sleep, which is often, that Commissioner Spitaleri raised a concern with his email and that of former Commissioner Lennon's and that of Administrator Jerry Morgan, former Administrator Jerry Morgan's. And I will tell you, that is a huge alarm flag for me. Anybody who asserts that there is some anomaly going on with their email that is residing on our infrastructure is a category 1 for me. It's no different than anybody calls in and says, I think I clicked on a virus. And to learn about it in the manner that I learned about it was very disconcerting. It caused me to immediately go to the parties at ADP and say, what is going on? Who has access to this stuff? What reports have been made? What have we investigated? What is the incident escalation? And why haven't we heard about it? And to be honest with you, I was shocked. There are no reports in ADP, not from anyone, not from any of the 3 parties who have claimed to have this experience until the YouTube presentation. And I guess I feel like I'm at a disadvantage. How does anyone investigate something that must have happened last year or before, because 2 of the 3 people who have this issue are no longer here at the county, and those circumstances can't be happening. And yet I'm dealing with the equivalent of old milk in a refrigerator, right? It never gets fresher. It never gets sweeter, and nobody wants to drink it. So I don't know what exactly we can delve into and discover at this point. But there are multiple ways that people can report incidents that involve a potential breach to our network. One is ADP, but there are investigative units at a variety of other resources that are available to county people. That is the prosecutor's office, the sheriff, any other law enforcement agency, Homeland Security, the Attorney General. They all have avenues where potential violations of anybody's privacy can be challenged and investigated. I am unaware of any of that being done at the time of the incident. Doing so now is very difficult. So I wish I had better news for you regarding that. And if that is continuing to be experienced, I am the first one to recommend calling in experts who can interrogate it. We did something very similar when we believed a wastewater treatment plant was under risk. We recommended a company called Dragos, who is an independent firm that does nothing but IT triage, and they will get to the root of the problem. They're very expensive, admittedly, but if the goal is to be safe and protected, then you have to spend the money in order to accomplish that. So I hope I've answered the 4 topics that were, I guess, high on my mind or that I recognize as being repeat questions. I'm happy to answer any other questions or have Frank address any details that I have not yet done for you.
Did you have any questions, Commissioner, before so one question I had is how many people and who at ADP even has the ability to access individual employees' emails? Like if you had a bad actor at ADP, would they be able to do this sort of conduct that's being alleged?
Yeah, I'll have,
Yeah.
Frank is more intimate with the details, but because I don't have any access. They barely trust me with a pen, but
It's not untrue. Yeah, so this would not be a great parallel for you necessarily. It would be for Commissioner Spitaleri. We treat our email access and control similar to what law enforcement treats leads as. I don't know if you have any familiarity. Certainly, you have
Just a little
familiarity with
bit,
leads.
Yeah.
Yeah, so
You can't look up your ex-girlfriend.
you can, but you can go to jail.
You
Right,
can.
yeah.
Yeah, you can. So we restrict access, then we require training and NDAs, non-disclosure agreements and whatnot for individuals who have access. And then obviously we limit to official use only, right? So it's the same paradigm that Leeds uses, and we have the benefit of working with the sheriff's office on some of their leads and spillman access. And so we're actually able to use the same sort of similar paradigm to what we do with that. So in terms of ADP, we have a system of check and balances on any email access. We have 2 people in the security department and 2 people in the data department, and they're the only 2 that have it. They check and balance on each other. So for instance, Chuck and I have the same level of user access that everybody up here has. Like, we don't have any access to any of that stuff. So we have it with the technicians who are specifically trained to do that, including the domain administrators, and then we have a next level down. So we have a series of checks within the separate departments under ADP that cross-check with that. Now, to the point of the similarity with leads is we do logging, right? So anytime
That
anybody,
was gonna be my.
yeah, so anytime anybody
How it's
accesses the
monitored.
system, there's
Yeah.
logs, yeah.
Yeah.
Significant logging on.
So, I mean, is that a public record? Like if somebody wanted to check like, hey, I think my email was accessed,
In terms of logging,
9:57.
yeah,
There may be some redaction to the log.
Yeah.
There may
Yeah.
be some, for example, if credentials were entered or anything of that nature. But yeah, I mean, again, I'm not a lawyer, but there's access to those records like any other public
Okay.
document.
Yeah.
in terms of my experience with people having questions about their email access, the biggest issue we have run into is when people share their credentials or passwords, which is why, please don't do that ever. People write it down in sticky notes, people share it with other people. We see that a lot with elected officials, with subordinates and whatnot. It's like, we can't be doing that. And then like, oh, somebody checked my email or my calendar and changed things. And then we pull the thread back and find out, well, an employee intentionally went in there and did something. Then it's okay. It's still not okay though. That's typically where we see those issues.
Okay.
Though based on the training and the information we've been putting out the past few years, we rarely ever see any issues of unauthorized password sharing or anything that I know of right now.
Okay. So to reiterate, neither one of you can access any of our emails.
No,
Just my own.
Yeah.
we have the same level of access that you have.
Okay.
Not for your email.
Yeah,
Our own
and
system.
to be honest with you, I mean, I'm sure people all envision us, somewhere huddled in a corner monitoring people's email, but
In a basement. Yeah.
I have much better things to do with my time, as I'm sure Frank does. And the reality is, there is risk inherent with anything, any document that is put anywhere on the internet or in space. Our email is in internet.
Mhm.
So, that's why we are so concerned with people sharing things like passwords or letting unauthorized people who were not assigned that particular login to have access into their account. I think that was a common practice in the past,
Mhm.
one that we have tried to break. And I think we've broken most of it. I think MFA has helped us. When people have to have dual authentication, it kind of makes it harder to share a password, but not impossible. So really the largest risk to getting into it is people sharing their information on how to log in. That's the biggest risk. But that's not an ADP function, that's a user function, although we can train people in why you shouldn't be doing that.
And the second biggest risk tends to be individual user compromise, where they click on a link of some sort. But again, we're seeing less of that. Users are getting much smarter, and we're getting more false positives and people turning over emails that they're concerned about, which is good. We're like, oh, actually, this email appears to be clean and was legitimate. That's better. It's more work, but it's better. People are having much less clicking issues with that. So my bigger concern is always the outside sort of thing. So we have 3 different levels of email security that we pay for that are redundant in terms of ensuring that outside attackers don't have access to the network like that. And then even within there, we pay for the higher level of Microsoft licensing, including the government type licensing, the autopilot extra pieces, just to ensure the confidentiality of email. We understand there's a significant amount of HIPAA information and PII in email, and that can't just be sort of segregated off within there. It's just all throughout a lot of people's email in the county.
Any other questions?
Just when I'm on the computer, I need help all the time. So, you know, they send
That's
somebody
totally
down.
true.
You may not want to say that in public.
And every time they come in, they're very helpful, your technicians and things. And they always, when I plug in my code, they either leave the room and let me get in there and this and that. It's very, very precise. So, and I appreciate
Well,
it.
they do have, and I think this goes to the reporting aspect. We have a protocol. So if we believe there is a suspected nefarious actor on our backbone or reported to us that somebody else thinks there's a nefarious actor, we have a process that is invoked. And that process is very rigid. We had an event just yesterday. It was not through an ADP partner. It was through I don't want to be careful. I don't want to identify the group. It was another government agency, a fire department within Geauga County, who has to get into a county system through the sheriff's department called Spillman. And they do that in order to get certain GIS data to be able to route to events and know directions of sending fire trucks and ambulances. And when they log in, our backbone starts to interrogate that connection and looks to see behind the curtain, is there anything on the back end that could be causing any harm? And it identified that computer had a potential, which turned out to be true, a potential virus, which involved ransomware. And it was on 3 of their machines. And so we had to sever that connection. We had to block them from access, because the risk is through that door, if you will, into Spillman, it could have gotten into the sheriff's system and then spread through the rest of the county without proper detection and isolation. So there's an example where as soon as we detected that event, we had a protocol. I received literally within 2 hours of the event a formal written report on what happened and what the experience was and what the remedy currently is. So I'm not saying we solved it in 2 hours, but I was made aware and I knew it had been escalated to a level that all of the eyes were on it. And that's probably, in running ADP, that's probably our mutual biggest hurdle. How do you budget for that?
Yeah.
How do you put a dollar on how many of those you're going to get, when you're going to get them, and how much it's going to cost to resolve? So that's where I think the unknown hits. But I think every department has those to some degree.
Mhm.
Maybe not dealing with cyber, but dealing with some other anomaly. We just happen to see that in the arena of cyber, it's a daily occurrence now. And I don't think it's going away. I don't want to be that person in the paper that has to write a check for 7 figures to get your data back. I don't want to. So that, unfortunately, there's a security and an insurance cost that is required in order to prevent that, or at least reduce your risk. And I want to thank Chrissy for putting us early on the agenda. I have an event I have to go to at 11 o'clock. So I was glad I could make this. And that's also the reason why I often have people here from my office that are, attending on my behalf, is that, as you know, we all have multiple strings pulling at us on a daily basis. And, in my world, I have a lot of duties that I have to pay attention to. And I want to know firsthand if there's something that I need to address or something they can address on my behalf. I want to have that available for the commissioners. I know oftentimes I've watched these videos and you've asked Frank regularly in the back of the room, is that true, Frank? And, I think there's a value to that. There's a value to the taxpayer, and there's a value certainly to this board. And I don't want to do anything that would prevent them from coming and therefore cost you more time and the taxpayers more money, where we could have avoided that by having somebody attend a meeting for an hour or two and pop in and out if they have to.
Any other questions?
I don't think so.
Well, thank you for the
Thank you.
clarification and details.
Thank you.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Jay Hajar with the Engineers Office, presenting items 4 through 7. Item number 4, the Engineers Office is requesting the board award the bid to Rhineak Paving Incorporated for the reconstruction of Butternut Road, County Highway 21. including the replacement of structure 21-0032 and the resurfacing of sections A through C in Munson Township in the amount of $1,991,420 as they presented the lowest and best bid. And the bid bond submitted shall serve as the performance bond for this project. Any questions?
So one thing I noticed is the bidders, I mean, they came out very close in the end, but the individual items were like all over the place. Like some of those variances were, I don't know, $50,000-$60,000 they were off. Do you typically see that sort of?
It depends. Some of the items, the lump sum items can vary depending on how the particular company wants to put their bids together.
Yeah,
The lump sums are paid in full
right.
rather than paid by the quantity
Okay.
used.
Yeah.
So that's kind of like a guarantee.
Hmm.
And sometimes they use that as a tool in their bidding, but usually they're a little closer than that. There were some unique bid items in
Yeah.
that particular project.
Yeah, it's almost like you wish you could pick and choose some of the items because there's such a swing between the two. But that was just something I noticed that I thought was interesting. I'll make the motion to approve for.
Second.
Commissioner Spillier. Commissioner Brady. Aye. Commissioner DeWart.
Yes.
Thank you. Item number 5, the engineer's office is requesting the board approve and execute the unit price contract for Grade Line with Grade Line Incorporated for the replacement culverts on various roads in Munson Township in the amount of $521.15.
I move to approve number 5.
Second.
Commissioner Spillier.
Aye.
Commissioner Brady. Aye. Commissioner DeWart.
Yes.
Thank you. 6 and 7 are new requests for action for projects replacing 2 bridges. Item number 6, the engineer's office is requesting the board approve and execute resolution 25-066 to order the replacement of Haskins Road Bridge, structure 191-3.21, Bainbridge Township. This resolution also requests the board approve and execute the title sheet. And further, this resolution sets the bid opening date on Bid Express for Friday, May 2nd at 10:10 a.m. Notice of this bid will be advertised on April 17th and on the county website.
So moved.
Second. Commissioner Spillier.
Aye.
Commissioner Brady. Aye. Commissioner DeWart.
Yes.
Thank you. And finally, item number 7, again, to request the board approve and execute resolution 25-067 for the replacement of Riverview Drive Bridge, structure 380-00.31, and also in Bainbridge Township. Resolution asks to approve the title sheet as well as set a bid opening on Bid Express for May 2nd at 10:12 a.m. And notice of the bid opening will be advertised on April 17th and on the county website.
I move to approve.
Second.
Commissioner Spillier.
Aye.
Commissioner Brady. Aye. Commissioner DeWart.
Yes.
Very good. Thanks so much.
Thank you.
Doesn't look like anyone's here. Item number 8, the Common Pleas Court Juvenile and Probate Division is requesting the board approve and execute the certification request to the county auditor, request to the Board of Commissioners quarterly use of county credit cards pursuant to ORC 301.27 for the year 2025, quarter 2 for the Geauga Credit Union Visa.
I move to approve.
Second.
Commissioner Spillier.
Aye.
Commissioner Brady. Aye. Commissioner DeWart.
Yes.
Morning, Glenn.
Morning. My name's Glenn Verdick from Geauga County Maintenance Department.
Morning.
Good morning. Number 9, the Maintenance Department, we're requesting the West Geauga Senior Center. The boiler out there is 25 plus years old, so we're had a little bit of problems last year or this year with it, so we're trying to get ahead of the game on that and get that replaced.
I'll make a motion to approve.
Second.
Commissioner Spillier.
Aye.
Commissioner Brady. Aye. Commissioner DeWart.
Yes.
Number 10, this is, we're trying to do an agreement with Paul Davis Restoration. We use this service contract for when we have an emergency. something like, if we have a water leak or something happens to one of the buildings, we can automatically call them in and get this situation. We had this contract last year and we didn't use anything on it. So it's something we just put in place so we're not running around at the last second.
That's what I was gonna ask. How much do you spend in a typical year? So last year was nothing. And then
Correct.
what about prior years? Do you find yourself?
The year before we had, it was either the elevator or and then the year before we had a water, heating system freeze and bust. So they came in and did the cleanup for that too. So, 2 years ago, we had I want to say it was the elevator at the Opera House where we had some problems there. So we had to get them in and get that all cleaned up.
Get that person out of the elevator.
Yeah.
I'm just All right, I'll make a motion to approve 10.
Second.
Commissioner Spillier.
Aye.
Commissioner Brady.
Aye.
Commissioner DeWort.
Yes.
Number 11 is looking ahead. We've been having problems with this elevator. I should call it a lift out at the Patterson Center. So we're just trying to get somebody in, get this updated. We got some water problems up there and get them to look at this whole thing and see what we got to do, or if we got to improve any ADA regulations and the whole works out there.
So I thought that was just a 1-floor building. Is that?
That has a basement in it too.
Oh, okay.
And in their basement, they have a very large meeting room.
I
we
see.
call it. So they do a lot of training down there,
Okay.
the OSU folks and everybody in there.
Okay.
4-H activities
Yeah.
in the basement as well.
I was so confused. I'm like, why do we need a wheelchair lift for a 1-story?
That would
Wow.
help me get up in the attic and do some work.
So what are we looking at for a total cost for this? If this is just essentially the design work?
This is just the design to get out there and figure it all out and then give us a rough quote on that.
Okay, so we don't have any like.
I don't at this moment.
Matt would always give me a rough number.
Well, and this
Or
was
rain.
Matt had started this, so I have many notes and
Okay,
of
that's fair.
everything from when he left, and he did leave in good standing and left me. We've had many meetings last week of trying to get caught up on everything. So I am running around these last couple days and these next couple weeks trying to do interviews. So we are in the process of doing interviews for his replacement.
Okay, great. You got some resumes then, it sounds like.
Yes.
Okay, all right, good. Good. All right, I'll make a motion to approve 11.
Second.
Commissioner Spillier.
Aye.
Commissioner Brady.
Aye.
Commissioner DeWort.
Yes.
All right, thank you. Y'all have a good day.
Okay.
Do you want to talk about this one, Christie? No? Adrian? Number 12?
11.
Your real property.
Oh, Adrian, County Commissioner's Office. So I received word from the auditor's property office about the property surrounding the courthouse that was transferred to the commissioners. It was previously exempted under ownership of the city. So now we are just applying for that same exemption from property tax under the county's ownership.
Okay.
So that's all that. this
I was
is.
wondering, because I looked it up and I saw it was already exempt
Yes,
from the property tax. When did that transfer happen?
it was I think it was towards the end of last year at some time. I'm not sure exactly when.
I think
I think it says it on the form. If
Okay.
you have the form
It was BC though, because I'm like, I don't remember.
I don't know, before Carolyn?
before,
It was 2/22/2024.
so February of last year.
Just for clarification, how we got to this point was when we started negotiating with the city of Chardon. Since conception, the courthouse property was always on the city's property. During negotiations, we said that we'd like to own the property that's underneath the courthouse. And so that's why we're to this point.
I see.
Correct.
Okay. I appreciate that.
Yeah, and it will revert back to the city if it ever gets used for anything other than a courthouse.
Yeah.
So it does have a provision in it for that, so,
Understood.
but as long as it's a courthouse, it's county property,
I'll make a motion to approve 12.
Second.
Commissioner Spillier.
Aye.
Commissioner Brady.
Aye.
Commissioner DeWort.
Yes.
Okay.
Thanks. Elaine.
Yep, thank you.
Item 13 is based on the discussion that we had last week about amending the public comment policy to make the amount of time available to each individual to 3 minutes instead of 2. That's the only thing that's changed.
And that would be effective with this meeting. Is that what it's saying?
Yes.
I'll make a motion to approve 13.
Second.
Commissioner Spillier?
Aye.
Aye. Commissioner DeBoer?
Yes.
Should we talk about the road vacation now before we get into the airport issues?
Sure.
That's all right.
Good morning.
Good morning.
What? Oh, yeah. Guess you're all looking at me. Laura LaChapelle with the Geauga County Prosecutor's Office.
Tracy Solkowitz with the Geauga County Engineer's Office.
So at the last meeting of the board, just to summarize, the commissioners obviously held the public hearing and closed the public hearing and indicated that they would be making a decision at a later time, and apparently that's going to occur today. And Mr. Lee is in the audience as well. So I think it may be helpful for the board. Obviously, the board's going to be taking a vote, but prior to the board taking a vote, maybe to give us an idea of which way they're leaning on this. And then I'm happy to provide a summary of a potential resolution that the board can execute to provide a basis for that decision.
I was comfortable with the last version that you had emailed me yesterday.
Okay. All right. So I guess at this point in time, we have a potential resolution here to vacate the Sandhill Trail Road. And just to give us a little bit of history here, obviously the Board of County Commissioners received a resolution from Munson Township requesting that they vacate Sandhill Trail. The board did pass a resolution that they believe that the public convenience and welfare may require the proposed vacation. Obviously, the engineer's office issued a written report, and the board held its public hearing, as I indicated, on April 8th, and heard evidence, any evidence upon the issue of the necessity of the vacation. And in the board's resolution, it's necessary for the board to identify the abutting property owners. And as indicated in the hearing, Jessica S. and Matthias A. Lee are the sole abutting property owners. And we are dealing with, I believe, 17 parcels that abut the proposed vacation of Sandhill Trail. As the sole abutting property owners, it appears that they will also be the only parties benefited by the improvement and the transfer of the acreage, the Sandhill Trail acreage. As indicated in the public hearing, Sandhill Trail is a paper road and has never been physically constructed, improved, or maintained in any way by the township or used as a road. Evidence was put in that no utilities have been installed on, over, or under Sandhill Trail, and Sandhill Trail has been abandoned by the township and not used for a period of over 21 years. And there's no reason to believe that Sandhill Trail will be used as a road anytime in the future. And evidence was also provided that the Lees requested Munson Township pursue the vacation of Sandhill Trail, as they are actively seeking to consolidate all of the lots abutting Sandhill Trail. And for all intents and purposes, it does not appear that, it does not appear to be of sufficient importance, the vacation of the road under these circumstances, to cause compensation and damages to be paid from the Treasury. And the board will proceed with the road vacation if compensation and damages, if the compensation and damages that I'll allude to are paid or such part thereof as the board deems reasonable and just is paid to the lease as the sole property owners who will be benefited by the road vacation. And this is based on a provision in the ORC. In this situation, obviously the lease being the sole property owners who could potentially be damaged by the road vacation are also the sole property owners who could be benefited by the road vacation. So it's recommended that the board determine based on consideration of all the facts and evidence presented at the hearing and the payment of that the payment of no compensation by the lease as the sole landowners of lands within the vicinity who will be benefited would be reasonable and just under the circumstances as the lease are, as I indicated, as the lease are the only abutting property owners and would therefore be paying compensation for damages, if any, to themselves. And again, it's recommended that no damages have been sustained by the lease as primary access to the lease house is via a drive access along the westerly property line of their property. That would be 10261 Mayfield Road. And vacation of Sand Hill Trail will not cause the lease to lose this primary access. Sand Hill Trail, as indicated earlier, has never been physically constructed or improved and never used as a road. And again, on the basis that the lease approached the township to request the road vacation and are actively seeking to consolidate the lots, and will have frontage on the road, and the transfer of the vacated Sand Hill Trail acreage to the lease will increase the amount and overall value of acreage currently held by the lease, and the public has an interest in the utilization of undeveloped and abandoned property. And it's also recommended that the board find that, as indicated by the engineer's office, that the vacation of the public road right of way upon Sand Hill Trail in Munson Township is in the interest of the public convenience and welfare. And as indicated in the engineer's report, that it's not used to calculate the distribution of auto registration distribution fund monies. And under the ORC, any order by the board vacating the road will not extinguish the rights of ingress and egress, if any, reserved to the lease as the sole abutting property owners. And the vacation of the road would pass in fee to the lease, subject to all to service facility rights, which would be, and this is straight out of the Ohio Revised Code, which would be any permanent easements in, over, or under the road for any service facilities, any public utilities, any electric cooperatives, and also that they would also have the right of ingress and egress to service and maintain those service facilities and the right to trim or remove any trees, shrubs, brush, or other obstacles. But it's my understanding there are no utilities. That's correct on that street. So as if the board is interested in fact vacating the road, these bases have been included in a resolution that could be signed by the board. Sorry, it's a little lengthy.
But that's okay. It has to be said.
Yep.
Is there a motion on this resolution?
Do we need to read the resolution or?
I can have a motion.
Okay,
Motion.
second.
Commissioner Spudler.
Aye.
Commissioner Brady.
Hey,
Commissioner Walker.
Yes.
Then the Mylar is in the process of being prepared.
Correct.
So that may come to the board next week for execution, and then actually the record will be sent to the township and they'll have to take action as well.
okay.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Do you guys want to come up?
So, we're there.
Sure.
They have a regular item on.
Oh, excuse me.
Sorry.
That's all right.
They have a look.
The number 14 is the parallel text.
Okay,
Regular
got it.
item.
Do that first.
Separate from the T hanger.
Got it.
I don't know if you heard me. I said that the item number 14 is your regular item regarding the parallel taxiway. And put that on first.
So the airport authority is
Just to
requesting,
stop you, could you
oh,
state your name and
sorry.
title for the record?
Rick Blamer, Airport Authority.
Greg Gilstrom, Airport Authority. Chip Hess, Airport Authority.
So the airport authority is requesting the board approve reimbursement request number 1 for the taxiway extension construction project, specifically to construct parallel taxiway Alpha, including taxiway connectors Alpha 1 and Alpha 2. Construction for the final phase and install taxiway edge lights. Construction final phase of the grant number 3-3-0054-028-2024 for professional services in the amount of $36,915, where the FAA shares $33,223.50 and ODOT and our local match is $1,845.75.
Make that motion.
Second.
Commissioner Spudler.
Aye.
Commissioner Brady.
Aye.
Commissioner Bowe.
Yes.
So the Commissioner's Office is requesting the board approve an encumbrance and expenditure to Geauga County Airport Authority in the amount of $800,000 from the Airport Construction Fund for contributing funds toward the construction of a new T hangar at the Geauga County Airport. And Adrian, maybe you could speak again to the question that was raised about how are we doing this when all the approvals aren't done? If you could explain that.
My assumption was that number 17 was going to be done in conjunction with 15 and 16. So,
Adrian, we have a revised agenda.
okay.
Thank you.
For the previous section, improvements and housing.
So there's probably confusion about the numbers that Adrian is talking about.
Okay. But just say encumbrance and expenditure, right? Not just the encumbrance.
Yeah, so the way that this would work is if the commissioners approve number 17, I guess you are assuming
Those were
or,
removed from the agenda.
no, I'm just saying, if they approve the encumbrance and expenditure for the $800,000, you are basically saying that the airport authority has met the requirements that you had for them. And today I've put $800,000 in appropriations in place in the airport construction fund. And then after today, I will transfer $800,000 from the general fund into the airport construction fund. And then we will create an encumbrance and an expenditure and then give the airport the $800,000 to use towards the construction of those new T hangars.
So this would
That's
just
what
be
my
step one in that direction.
But it's only step one if we approve the resolution, which we just got this morning.
Right. Okay.
So, so maybe you gentlemen could go through the revised resolution, the red lines that you made to it, and talk about why you made them.
Well, first off, I'd like to thank Linda for helping us. We had several emails going back and forth where everybody's trying to get us finished with this. We appreciate that very much. We did our best to review it. Our legal counsel reviewed it yesterday. That's why it came out last minute. But basically if you want to look at the amended resolution first, do you have copies of what we emailed over to you with the red lines?
I do not have that. I asked you to send me what was approved last night and you sent me the agreement, but.
Yeah, I have a red line. I don't have an executed version.
No.
This is what we sent you last night.
I guess I asked you, what did you approve? Is that what you approved? Did the airport authority approve the amended resolution at your meeting? Or
Yes.
did you just approve the agreement? Okay.
Well, I mean,
because I don't know
it's our understanding that the resolution is approved by the commissioner.
We approved the
Right.
agreement that approved the resolution.
Okay, so.
But your agreement that you approved was based on the amended resolution,
correct.
not on the resolution
correct.
we passed.
That's
last
correct.
week. Okay.
And just, I mean, again, some of this is just advice from our legal counsel. It is connecting the resolution to the agreement where the first page had a couple red lines, just connecting back to that document. And then if you remember last week, item number 3 was deleted out, had to do with compensation. All we did is clean up a couple numbers where it was, item 4 rather than, item 3 rather than item 4. And then it struck out the one with about 4 conditions. That's really the resolution. That's what we
So
did.
that the 4 conditions was your language, and I don't know what the 3 conditions or the 4 conditions are, but we don't need to get to that because the real red line, of course, that I want to talk about is the most substantive red line
Okay.
that you made to the resolution, which you haven't discussed, which is regarding your affirmation that you have complied and you will comply with the agreement.
With the agreement for the T hangar?
No, with it,
Well,
the
I mean, this-
operating agreement between the commissioners and the airport authority.
Moving forward, we will agree with the agreement.
Okay, so are you admitting on the record that you have not been complying with the
No.
agreement? So then why would you not agree to that?
Because that would open up the door for anybody to find some piece of paper from 7 years ago that we might have filed or not filed. And we want to move forward.
Basically, we installed a cure period. In other words, if there's something that is of dissatisfaction to the
Let's
committee.
not move on to the cure period. Let's talk about the agreement itself
Well,
with
this
the
is,
commissioners.
what we're trying to prevent here is an oversight on our part turning into an absolute withdrawal of the money. In other words, if we're going to comply with whatever you so wish. All we're asking for.
But
is
only in
that-
the future, not what you
No,
already
no,
agreed
no,
to in the
is,
past.
is, we don't want to allow you to have a gotcha that says 2 years ago, you didn't submit some report, therefore we've got you in violation of the agreement. What we're asking for is a normal cure period where you advise us if we miss something, we'd be happy to comply, and we've got 30 days to
So
do it.
that's a
it's a-
separate, but that's a separate provision.
But it's a
Sorry.
good
That's-
faith provision.
So, but the provision you're talking about, the cure period, that's not what I'm talking about. So that's located later in the resolution under item number 3. What I'm talking about is your amendment to number 2, where it previously said that the authority, I don't have the language in front of me, but essentially the authority confirms that it has complied and will comply. And you deleted that has complied. And so now it says will comply. So what we don't need to talk about the cure period because we're not there yet. Let's just talk about why you will not promise what you already promised.
Because we
in a prior
don't
agreement.
know if we missed something in the past. It's just that simple.
Okay, but you already made that promise. You already executed that agreement. We are currently operating under that agreement. Do you understand that?
I guess I do not.
So what would you consider the most important agreements that the airport authority operates under?
The joint agreement between the two parties.
Okay, I would tend to agree with you, but that's probably the number one agreement. So you will not promise that you are following the terms of that agreement.
We are
Which you
unaware.
already promised to by
We're simply
executing that agreement.
unaware if we have been late with something or we didn't file something. So we're just not aware that if you think do the commissioners think we're missing something?
I don't know. That's why
So-
I'm asking you that question.
So why would we say that we did when we're unaware that we may have missed something?
I mean, do you?
So it goes hand in hand with good faith negotiation, that if you have a deficiency, which you have identified, we will certainly make good on it. But I find it difficult to agree to a gotcha clause.
There's no gotcha clause because you already
That's all it
executed
is.
that agreement. You already executed the agreement. All an agreement is promises
I
between
guess
two
let's
parties.
back the bus up here and what are you trying to get at?
I think that this is a red line confession that you have not been following the agreement.
That's your interpretation.
Well,
Listen, I'm not trying to interpret anybody's intent, but when I see what is as far as vanilla things in this resolution, the most vanilla is that you have been fulfilling the terms of the agreement because you already are under that agreement. Can you please stop interrupting me? So you're already under that agreement. You already promised to those promises. So I'm just asking, are you going to do that? Have you done that? And you're like, well, we will do it. but we don't know if we have. been
We
doing it.
believe we have, but if there's something that is missing, we'd be glad to comply.
I think that the agreement that you guys signed with the commissioners back in 2018, there was no guardrails and no consequence. You know, if you go over 35 miles an hour, there's a consequence. There's a police officer there, you get a ticket and so on. So there was no consequence with the 2018 agreement, which I wasn't commissioner at the time. So with this, we, thanks to Commissioner Brackey, with these guidelines, that there's a consequence for this, or that, and maybe to move forward, if we would change the language to, from this day forward, because no one gave you consequences before.
There is a consequence, and that is breaching the agreement. That's the consequence. And
So
then
that's your intent, is to find a bridge.
it is not my intent to file a breach. My intent
Where's
is
the goodwill here for a joint county? commissioner?
goodwill. You sent me an agreement this morning to look at. What are we
Well,
talking about?
Last week you
Last
contacted
week,
us with,
Same exact thing happened to us.
nothing,
now
we
let
didn't
me
even get
explain
so
something
much
to
as a
you.
written copy.
Let me explain something to you. Do you understand the difference between a resolution and an agreement?
Government is not my business, so.
That's fair. Okay, so let me explain it to you. So a resolution is a unilateral motion. It's essentially a legislative action of the Board of Commissioners.
Right.
We only sign that. That's what we did last week. That's a unilateral document. Okay.
Sure.
So you are not a party to that document.
Okay.
There's no, sign here, airport authority. An agreement, that is a bilateral understanding between two parties. Both parties sign the agreement. Both parties make promises to one another. So that's what we're doing here. That's what you sent, that I received this morning. So that's something you signed and I signed. We both make promises to each other. We both have responsibilities and obligations under that. Do you understand how that's different than a resolution?
Sure.
Okay. So, when you say you got the resolution last minute, you are not a party to the resolution. You are a party to this agreement. Just I am a party to this agreement.
We were asked to comment on it without ever seeing it.
I don't.
We stood
do that.
right here.
Yes.
I was fine with it.
The commissioners were trying to come to a vote in whether or not we could live with these unusual conditions that were, again, brought in at the last.
Unusual. You think
To
following
control-
the terms
to con-
of the agreement that you already executed.
You wanted to control
unusual
the salary of our one employee.
Listen, we're giving you $800,000. I read, let me see where I found the terms. These are so first of all, this is your application for the FAA. This is 72 pages. I looked at the FAA assurances that you have to make for any grants. These are 19 pages. We asked you guys to sign or to agree to one little paragraph, not 72 pages, not 19 pages, one paragraph. And one of those things is just, have you been following the terms of the agreement we're already under? And that's the one you're like, can't do that. Do you see how that would be problematic to me?
Well, we're essentially a county function attempting to negotiate in good faith with county commissioners. We believe we have complied, but if we have not, we will make good on it.
Okay, so if
We've
you
never
believe you
been
comply, then you should
notified.
accept the terms.
We-
of
we-
the
yeah, that's
We've never
resolution.
been notified that we have not been in compliance, so as far as we know, we are.
That's fair. So if you believe that in good faith that you have been complying with the terms of the agreement, you should accept the terms as originally presented in our resolution, which we have already passed.
May I ask a question of Mr. DeVore?
Sure.
Jim, you mentioned that if we busted the speed limit, we would get a ticket.
Right.
What's the ticket here? If we busted the speed limit?
Well, it says in the resolution where, $800,000, if you don't do this, this, and this, then it turns into a loan. That's the consequence. That's
But our goal is moving forward.
Oh, yeah.
Yes, moving forward.
Right.
Yeah.
So that's a consequence.
Right. Okay.
So-
Right.
Before, nobody knocked on your door, sent you an email, and says, hey, you're not following this item, whatever it is.
Okay.
You never received that from, anybody.
And if we hadn't been following something, I would have been more than happy to provide whatever was necessary. And looking back at some of the emails over the years that I've sent with things like annual reports, I've asked if there's any additional requirement to meet, and was told that no, what I provided was fine. So I was under the impression that I am providing the information that's required as part of the agreement
When was the last time you read the agreement between yourself and the
a
commissioners?
couple weeks ago.
Okay. What about you, gentlemen? Have you ever read the agreement, the operating?
Last week.
I reviewed it last week.
After session, I assume.
Well, actually before, but
I have a real problem with giving you $800,000 and you won't even say that you've been complying with the terms of the contract.
we're playing a word game here because we believe we have.
Okay, then agree to it.
And are you, as commissioners, are you aware of any violation of the agreement?
I am not, but
Mr. Stenock, Mr. DeVark, are you aware of anything? Has there been any notice served to the airport authority that we have violated that agreement in any shape or form?
No.
Adrian, you're in the room.
No, I'm not aware of anything.
Now with the financials, do you sit with Adrian once a year? I think one of you guys said it.
Well, I think, as I look at I wasn't around when the airport agreement was made back in 2018. And I think it's a flawed document in that it doesn't define things well enough. I mean, we could have done a better job. This is looking backwards. For example, we talked about defining an expense maintenance versus a capital item. These are real world terms that we need to grapple with. And all we want to do is run the best airport in the state of Ohio. And so, that's one of the things that we should really focus on is that agreement, making sure it's current with the beliefs and the wishes that you have, and we would gladly comply. It's just that simple.
so you will gladly comply,
Absolutely.
or you have gladly.
Moving forward.
We believe we have and we will continue.
I feel like this is almost like a husband and wife, and like the wife feels like the husband's cheating on her. She's like, promise you've never cheated on me. And he's like, listen, I never will in the future cheat on you. That's kind of what it feels like to me, that you guys like won't promise you've been following it, but you're like, listen, in the future, we're not going to cheat on the agreement.
But to the best of your knowledge, you haven't, because you haven't received any documentation from our administrator.
Right.
So then you should agree to our original resolution that we passed last week, if you don't think there's been any breaches of the agreement.
Well, this is a matter of trust.
In the past, we've
Yes,
had a-
I agree.
In both directions.
Listen, the best predictor of future performance is past performance.
You're insinuating that we haven't done something.
You're insinuating
No,
that by
we-
redlining the agreement.
We have
that
not.
you-
We have not.
You haven't.
We have never
followed.
been told we haven't.
Okay, so then I think we should go with the resolution that we passed last week.
Why would you not allow a cure period in a contract? I mean, in the world of business, you do joint ventures, you do corporate acquisitions, you do all these things. There's always a cure period within that. Why would you not allow that?
Okay, so we as commissioners have the ability to do that in our discretion. So right now the discretion lies with
Well,
us.
you're writing a
And
contract.
can you let me finish, please?
Yes,
So
ma'am.
that discretion lies with us. And depending on what the breach is, there is a breach where it would be so egregious that we would be like, no, there's no cure period. We need to move forward. And so
If you'd like to, excuse me.
this is getting challenging, isn't it? So the way it's written now, that discretion lies with us, and that discretion lies with us because we are giving you $800,000 and we aren't getting anything in return. I mean, you're going to tell me you're building infrastructure, but let's be real, it's for 8 private planes for 7 rich guys, right? So that's not really something that benefits the county in a whole. And so because of that, we need to have power on our side of the dais. And one way we do that is we get to decide if a cure period is appropriate or not.
That the money is for the T hangar, which over the life of that building will generate $7.5 million for the
I've never
income.
seen those numbers because you've never given them to me.
We emailed them to you last week.
The only thing I've heard as far as like what the maintenance costs is and so forth are based on Mr. Thor's resolution of work.
I can provide you.
That's, I saw like I think numbers regarding what the cost of the project is, but I don't think I've seen like, what are the maintenance costs of it? What are the rent costs? I don't.
Seeing it or
recall
not,
seeing that.
that building will generate $7.5 million of income to the county for a commissioner's or county
It's not for
investment.
the county, it's for you. It's for the airport authority because that's how the agreement's written.
It's a county asset.
We are the county.
We are the county. It
Wow.
is a county asset. That $7.5 million is to benefit the county, because then that will relieve the county commissioners of having to assist the airport to upgrade buildings. That's what we're after here.
But your responsibility is maintaining buildings per the terms of the contract.
We're going in circles, chasing our tail.
Yeah.
Help yourself.
May I review the justification for the hangar?
Sure.
Okay, okay.
Hangar Bravo at Geauga County is a once in a decade opportunity. We will attract new airplanes to the airport, who will not only pay hangar rent, but also purchase fuel. This additional rent for the very first time will allow proper maintenance for the facility, the grounds, the hangars, et cetera, and the UH helicopter ambulance living space. We have never had this level of money before to do maintenance. And again, back to the 2018 agreement, it really kind of ignores capital versus maintenance. This is a once in a decade opportunity, and here's why. The GCAA normally funds airport improvements via FAA funds, plus a small required match from ODOT and the county. And we do it in the form of entitlements and competitive grants. The FAA will never pay for hangars, hangar aprons, or general upkeep of our airport. They did have an airport terminal fund, but it has largely went to big airports with commercial airlines. As a result of COVID, the BIL fund was created by Congress to add infrastructure spending to the states for airports. This funding will be spent regardless of which state or which county gets the money. So it's a competitive grant. The BIL fund covered a broader scope of shovel-ready infrastructure, which would support other types of airport facilities not normally covered under FAA policy. So we, as a result, the GCA won $585,000 BIL grant for Geauga County spread over 3 years for the purpose of building Hangar Bravo. The grant will expire in annual increments starting in April of 2025. Thus, the urgency to approve the county's $800,000 to fully fund the project. We have a low bidder who is under the engineering estimate, and if this project is delayed, future inflation in building materials will certainly affect the affordability of this project, and we all know inflation is coming. What are the benefits to Geauga County? In the first year of operation, the hangar will produce $48,000 in rent revenue plus fuel sales revenue for these additional airplanes. This will help fund maintenance spending. Assuming proper maintenance, and it is a modern building, a 50-year useful life is conservatively estimated. We must note that hangars 4 and 5 are over 60 years old and started life as relocated turkey coops. These are chicken
They kind of
coops.
look like it.
They certainly do. Assuming an inflation factor rent increase of 4% annually, which has been our practice, we can do more if necessary. And then compounding it at 100% occupancy, Hangar Bravo would return almost $7.4 million of revenue over the estimated useful life. In simple payback terms, the rent revenue will return the $800,000 investment in approximately 13 years. We should assume that a replacement roof will be needed somewhere towards the latter part of its lifespan. A replacement roof would only extend the useful life of this valuable asset built with 2025 dollars. You can only imagine 50 years from now what that building will be worth in terms of building it. So the annual revenue rates for Hangar Bravo will include an accrual for future maintenance. The bottom line is, as a result of county funding for Hangar Bravo, Geauga would finally have the resources to properly fund the long-term maintenance for the grounds and the facilities. Geauga County is one of the few airports in Ohio that runs a break-even to positive income statement with one part-time manager and a host of unpaid volunteers. our airport and our culture is well regarded in Northeast Ohio and strongly support the business of Geauga County. So as a financial investment, it's a slam dunk. You spend $800,000 for a county facility that over its 50-year lifespan returns a revenue stream of $7 million plus, which will fund the maintenance for your airport.
So I have some questions about the grant application, if we could turn to that. So I noticed on the request for action, I don't know the right one up, but it lists that the 800,000 is the local match to receive this $586,000. But then when I look at the FAA application, I see the local match was only $30,000, $789. So could you talk about that?
There are certain expenses that are FAA eligible for reimbursement.
Mm-hmm.
When FAA does reimburse those expenses, they will do so at 90%, and then there's a percentage that doesn't fall into that. That's that 30,000.
So does that mean then that the local match for you to get the 585 is really only that $30,000?
Yes.
That's correct. So we don't need to give you $800,000 for you to get this $585,000 grant. We only need to give you that 30,000 as the local match.
Can't build a building without the money.
Yeah, but without that, then the
Well, I mean,
Project
so
falls flat.
where else have you looked for funding for it? Have you asked the people in the wait list to put up money? Have you done a fundraiser?
in December, we thought we had the money, that there was no need to go find elsewhere. We've been scrambling since then to try to put this deal together. And with your requirements and things like that, we have not had time to seek alternate funding.
Because what I thought was interesting, so I read through these FAA assurances for our airport, and they have like a whole paragraph on this that talks about hangar construction and building a hangar at the aircraft owner's expense. There's like whole part in these documents. I thought that seems to be more of the typical financing model. From what I can tell, is that these actual airplane owners are the ones financing it, not the taxpayers who are never going to set foot in a hangar.
Okay, a lot of that development that takes place with private money is called through the fence.
Mhm.
In other words, it's not sitting on airport property.
Okay.
So it's as any person, we could invest our own money, build a hangar, charge rent, and do it through the fence operation. We don't have anything set up in that regard.
Mhm.
So I question to the commissioners is, week after week, we watch you approve monies for the county fairgrounds, for airports, for all the facilities within the county. Are we the only operation that runs at break even?
You don't
Within
run
the
at
county?
break even. You get money from taxpayers. You get FAA money. You get money from the
Well, the
commissioners.
FAA grants are as a result of our work to
But
win
that's
these competitive
taxpayer
grants.
money. That's taxpayer money. That's still not money you're
Right,
owing.
we are a county function,
Mhm.
correct?
You're under the commissioner's authority.
For a break-even operation, we maintain that facility for you. I'm speechless here in terms of the kickback.
Do you not understand the difference? Like if we are putting money in, like, let's say office space, those are our employees that are fulfilling statutory functions of government, and they are here 5 days a week. Do you see how that's different than 8 private airplanes in a hangar?
Well, the 8 private hangars will provide the revenue of 7 million plus to
Okay.
maintain your airport. It's a slam dunk. I mean,
You're
from a
already
business
supposed to be
perspective.
maintaining the airport.
Sorry?
You're already supposed to be maintaining the airport.
Well, if we don't, again, the agreement fails to recognize that we do not produce enough income to properly maintain your airport.
But I mean, I don't want to bring this up, but you could produce more income by charging more for rent and keeping your expenses
We're
down.
talking about rounding errors.
I don't think so. If you've got, I mean, so one of my other questions about this application is I noticed it refers to this hangar wait list. which was the last page. And this, it says it's from 2019, and then there's another date that says updated 2023. But there's only 19 people on this, and I've been given a waiting list where there's 32 people. And then I think these are different people that are slotted for this Bravo hangar. Is that correct? So how many people are on the wait list?
I'm not sure which list that we included in there. I think that was just for, specifically for that hangar.
For that?
The waiting list is a moving, maybe people move in and move out all the
Okay.
I
time.
took 4 people off this week and added 5 more.
Okay.
What occurs is that people are trying to get on the list so they can purchase an airplane and then come to Geauga County. If they haven't purchased the airport, or I'm sorry, if they haven't purchased the airplane, they may still be on the list. Or and one occurred last week, a guy bought an airplane, we have no space for him, he moved to Portage.
Of the
So it's
five,
very dynamic.
of the 5 people on the airport committee, who was here in 2018?
I believe 3. Chip, then,
I don't recall who else was on the board at the time. I was on the board in 2018.
Okay, because I'm just referring to, I wasn't here. Commissioner Brackey wasn't here in 2018. And I see your frustration with, you don't know what you don't know about what happened from 18, 21, 22, whatever. And so, and understand that, you know, you don't want to be in a gotcha moment. And
that's all we ask.
Yeah. Make us aware of what we need to do and we'll do it.
Understood. I mean, there is no gotcha moment. There is no gotcha moment.
The trust isn't there.
On either side, I think, sir.
I fully agree.
I mean, listen, you're refusing to promise that you followed your promises. Do you see how that is problematic for me as I am handing you $800,000?
well, with these new conditions, you know, if we could just put from this date forward, because half the board wasn't there in 2018, because we now have conditions, guardrails of the consequences if they don't do this, this or that.
But Mr. Bork, there were already consequences because they already signed this agreement. This is a pre-existing agreement, and there are consequences, which is breaking the law if they don't follow it. And that's a breach of contract if they don't follow it. So that there are consequences in place. I am not joking when I say this is the most vanilla part of this whole resolution, is that they promise that they fulfilling their previous promises. And if they are not willing to say that to taxpayers, we should not be giving them this money. And I think it's absolutely reckless to do so.
We are witnessing a lot of very careless language.
I'm talking about the commissioners being reckless. I'm not talking about you. You guys get very sensitive about some of these words.
I think we need a little time to have our suggestions from the prosecutor on the agreement and if we want to tweak the resolution or not. So if you guys can come back next week, I'm sure we'll have it figured out. We just got some information from you guys yesterday or last night.
Moving forward, Jim, how do you want us to communicate with comments? Because everything we have from either the board or our legal counsel goes through Linda?
Goes through Linda and then she'd send us an email.
Well, except
think
if
that'd be
it's something
safe.
on the agenda, it needs to go through Christie.
Well, yeah,
Yeah.
they work, Linda and Christie work hand in hand.
Right.
So since December, when we had an approved agreement,
Never had an agreement.
There was never an
We
agreement.
approved funding in
a
December.
It
resolution,
was dependent on an agreement that was never signed.
right, and so we're effectively doing a terrific job of running out the clock. We're gonna lose this money if we don't do this by next week.
I'll make a motion to put that $30,000 in your bank.
We're talking about the 800.
Well, I'm just saying that would allow you, your argument, so I was never aware that you only needed $30,000 to apply for this grant. It always seemed to me, we were told it was 1.3.
No, we have to have the full funding in force. The 30,000 is just the FAA required match.
Okay,
But if we don't have the full funding for the hangar, it's there's no point in applying for it.
But as far as our part,
It
you
will be
only need,
denied.
you only need the 30 and change from us.
No,
No. We can't go forward with an application for a grant if we don't have the full funding in force.
Okay, I understand.
Per our consultant, Michael Baker.
Okay.
And they're extremely expert, and they have expertise in these types of matters.
based upon the decision that was made in December, we've expended engineering, architectural services. We've got quite an investment already. So we would lose that amount of money.
And my thought process was to get the airport authority board into a, making money to put it back into the buildings.
Exactly.
And again, it's the taxpayers' buildings, property. Our names are on the deed as commissioners, whoever the commissioners may be over the years. And it's a revenue source to continually make improvements on the old buildings that used to be chicken or turkey coops
Mhm.
at one time, 60 years ago.
Plus UH, living quarters, new doors. We've got lots of things to do, which we've had before this board for many years requesting funding.
I mean, didn't this board give you like $350,000 for the UH hangar?
For the hangar,
Okay.
correct.
380.
Yes, that's correct.
Because UH was really wanting it. They UH communicated with their group and us. And I feel more comfortable with the helicopter from UH in Geauga County versus having it in Orwell or Garrettsville, because every minute means something when somebody has a car accident or whatever.
No, absolutely.
So
I mean, I do
we
think
wanted
that
to,
that's an asset to our community, no doubt. But I mean, they're the only ones that are paying fair rent as far as I can tell from the spreadsheet. They're paying 10 times more than some other people are.
They have 10 times more space.
It's simply based on square footage.
it's all the same.
It's all square footage.
But along with the, what was it, a 16% increase that we put through?
Effective.
When we fix the building.
Also, we put nearly 100,000 into that hangar in addition to what you guys did.
Yeah.
So now we have an asset that will serve the county through UH for another 50 years.
right.
You know, we'll come back to you with on hangars 4 and 5, you know, these old chicken coops. We spend 90 grand to throw some new roofs on there. We will extend the revenue stream for another 20 years. Which again, these revenue streams fund the maintenance for the facility. You know, as you looked at the asset list within our more recent thing, we have old tractors to cut the grass. We have equipment that's been donated. Everything in that building is practically donated. So we run on a shoestring here. And as the facilities age out, just as you approved for all the other wonderful employees here, you know, sure, we'll put a new roof on, sure, we'll put a new boiler in, sure, we'll do this. How is this different? It's a county facility. It's a county asset.
I want to continually maintaining the buildings and getting some kind of revenue stream.
We have one employee. How many departments do you have with one employee? And the rest of us putting in 20, 30 hours a week to make this happen.
Okay, so moving on to procedurally, the prosecutor's office needs to approve the agreement. And if there's, to the extent there's a change in our resolution, they need to revisit the agreement. Do you want to talk to that, Laura?
And that's fine. We just want the agreements, the resolution and the agreement to reflect the intention of the board. So, I mean, obviously, as you indicated, in light of the fact that the airport has made some additional revisions, we just need to make sure that everything, you know, obviously is consistent and in line with the board's intent.
Do we have a commitment that we'll get this reviewed quickly?
You're not her boss.
No, I'll ask you to ask her then, please.
I mean,
Well, we've had massive delays from the prosecutor's office on prior. I mean, the facts speak for themselves.
I think the prosecutor's office knows we're in a time crunch. Okay.
And can we have our attorney talk to the prosecutor's office directly? To work these details out?
I don't have any issue with that.
What's that?
I have no issue with that.
Okay.
Please do.
Okay.
I think that'd probably be more efficient.
Yes.
So we'll do everything we can to have things ready for next week. And it will probably not just be the agreement and a potentially amended resolution, but it'll also be the application, because we have some questions that need to be sorted out with that as well.
Yeah, and I'm confused. What do we, so I thought we were just acknowledging this agreement, but then I'm told we need to sign parts of the.
The assurances,
Okay, so,
those would have to
But
be
are we a
signed at some point.
co-sponsor? Because
Right.
we're not listed as a co-sponsor in there.
Well, that's when we receive the grant offer that you will sign, your attorney will review it, we will sign, our attorney will review it.
This is just the application. When the grant comes through, that's when the final documents all get acknowledged by everybody.
Traditionally, the applications comes strictly from the airport.
okay, so then why do we need to sign it?
Are we a co-sponsor or are we not a co-sponsor?
Yeah, that's
You're a
right.
co-sponsor of the airport and on the grant itself.
Okay. Okay. We'll keep walking down this road because it all needs to be done by next week.
Yes.
And then we would need the resolution back from you that gives Chip the ability to actually execute and
That was, that they provided, the airport authority took action to authorize Chip to do that. The commissioners have to do the action on their side.
right.
So but we did that.
Yeah, we did that.
They have.
You guys,
They haven't.
and I believe I sent you a resolution for them
Yeah,
for the application.
I just need some confirmation on a couple of things in there. I'm not sure if it's fiscal year 24, because that was left in there from the previous resolution. So that's a question that,
I'll have to get clarification on that because it's monies that go back to 22, 23,
right,
24.
there's multiple years.
Yes.
I don't know if that
Yeah.
might just be something that just needs removed.
So it'll be quite a bit of stuff next week and we're gonna ride hard on it as best we can to get that together.
Appreciate it.
Laura, if I can ask you a question real quick, would it be okay if we were to make a motion so that we would, lock in the funds to have that transfer done to the, airport construction fund? That we could do that today so that the money would be committed, that they could get that application at least moving forward. And then we could get the rest of the stuff cleaned up later.
And again, it's entirely up to the board. It just reflects the board's intent. So if the board intends to transfer the money prior to having an agreement in place, that's obviously up to the board,
Because
but
I would feel comfortable making a motion to transfer the $800,000. And then that fund is committed and then move forward because I think we're at risk. We're at risk of losing over $500,000.
the only issue is, of course, the resolution in the agreement will govern the use of the funds. So
Right.
monies are transferred.
Right.
and,
Well, I
That's
think that
right.
we all-
We made a decision last week, Mr. Dvorak, to make the transfer contingent on that resolution. And so we should not back down on that.
And is it my understanding too that you will hold on to the funds and we will come as we did today to ask for the reimbursement?
No, the original intent of this was to be able to just transfer the money to the airport authority and then you manage the payment of the contractors with that money.
Okay, I wasn't clear on that.
Yeah, that's.
And Adrian mentioned that last week too.
I recall.
You must have missed it or something.
So then does my motion die with no second?
Correct.
And all I could say is I give you guys an enormous amount of credit being volunteer board. And, to me, we have had an agreement in place since 2018. There's never been an issue. You guys have had also audits that have come through the airport where the state auditors have actually, come in to review stuff. I can't remember what year it was, but I know that, every year they pick a certain department. Nothing has ever been flagged to me that there's been any kind of inconsistencies. If there's anything, the potential of just, everybody there is volunteer and Rick is part-time, that might be a delay, but it's it's hard for me to sit up here and listen to this, knowing how much you guys have committed to what you do. I think you guys are a lot stronger than I am to be able to hang in the fight. Because I would have thrown the towel in a long time ago and said, have at it, and you guys figure it out. You know, at the end of the day, it's a county asset. It's our, you know, our county buildings that we ultimately own and have made a huge pass at improvements. We've done a lot of things to make that place safer. I just think that, you know, if all of our, if all of our departments ran with the amount of minimal investment of what we do with the airport, I mean, our taxes would be virtually nothing. So, you know, we keep on going down this whole thing of, you know, county tax dollars. I'd really like to try to zero down to the what, you know, off of the 96,000 people of what we actually, you know, pay into the airport, what that comes to per person.
14 cents per year.
14 cents per year. So, you know, 14 cents per year, to look at that of what it gives for business community, you know, education for kids, some of the pilot programs that you have for the youth, the, you know, the rides that are given to introduce kids to aviation out there. It's, I think it's, an incredibly small price to pay that I think that we can, mix words to make it sound like, the taxpayers are absolutely getting fleeced. That's not the case here. And I commend you guys. I commend you guys for your patience and your, strong will, and you know, and also for the fact that, you know, we had a agreement that we felt was very strong in December.
There wasn't an agreement.
Or not, but we had a motion to fund you guys to a point that would have made that airport that much stronger. And I just thank you very much, and tip my hat off to your guys' patience and endurance in this matter. And at the same time, I also apologize for some of the word exchange, and I know that you guys are professionals, and I don't like some of the, you know, statements that have been made, but every commissioner, I guess, can speak for themselves of what they want to say to you, but I want to say thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, sir.
Thanks. See you next week.
Do we need to table the item 15?
Yes.
Mhm.
I'll make a motion to table, item 15 in the agenda.
Second,
Commissioner Spudler.
I,
Commissioner Brinkley.
All right.
Yes.
Just wanted to ask, because Ralph said something about movement of funding into the airport authority. Adrian, you already moved the $800,000 into the airport construction
No.
fund
I've just set up appropriations.
appropriation.
No cash has been
Okay.
transferred yet from the general fund into
Correct.
the airport
Okay.
construction fund. I was waiting until after today to do that,
Okay.
or not do it, as the case may be.
Okay.
For discussion.
Last week, Commissioner Spitaleri brought up concerns about the First Energy Middlefield office possibly closing. I had a couple conversations with Mr. Conley, who is sort of a government liaison. And we drafted a letter and sent it to all three of you. And we're just waiting to hear if that's something you want us to go ahead and send. I don't know, does that require an action or, okay,
Did my red lines get to,
yes.
okay. Rick, did you gentlemen have an opportunity to review them?
I reviewed it and
You
they
said
fell
you
into
liked
the
it.
okay. I
You
liked
liked
it.
fine with it.
And then we also got copies of some support documents that we were going to send along with that letter to, and I can show that to you.
Okay, I would want to
If you
see that
want.
before it goes out.
Yes.
So is there a motion to send the letter out with?
Well, can I hear about the support documents first.
I left them on my desk and because we were in talks right till I didn't have them
understand.
with me.
I understand.
But I can show them to you after. I will say I did consult with Roger as well. And he did assure us that if this office is in fact closed, he feels that the locations of the Lake County and then whatever the other one was, this Portage County, I don't know, is close enough to us that we would still get reasonable service from those areas, that we don't have to be afraid. Not having it will leave us without coverage. So letter is excellent. I wrote one, but it got significantly fixed. And I thought it was a real great letter, and we'll put these things together. I can show you the documents that we've also received from other places in support of this.
The great facts and details in the letter, so.
Yeah, I added a little bit of teeth to it because First Energy has a base distribution rate case before the PUCO. And if they close this facility, I said we would file public comment in that rate case.
So make note that that's included in the letter.
Yes, I mean, we could take it out if you want, but that does give it a little bit of teeth because that's
Yes.
something that they want to pass. And part of that rate case is they said they were making these various cuts without impacting service, but it doesn't seem like that would probably be possible.
Well, if you close the service office, that might affect service.
Well, exactly. Yeah. So, I mean, that's kind of my point. So I mean, I think we could file comment that's saying, hey, you made these promises in your rate case, but you closed the Middlefield service office and we are unhappy about that. And the PUCO would weigh our letter. So just wanted to make sure, I just wanted to flag that part to make sure you gentlemen were okay with it.
I'm fine.
So the person that, that she's referring to was prepped and ready to go. I have 5 copies available if you are interested in moving forward with approving and executing the letter to CEI regarding the closure of the Middlefield Service Office.
I'll make the motion to approve the letter.
Second.
Mr. Spitaler?
Aye.
Discussion?
Yes.
The challenge there is that we had 4 people to send it to. And if you only sign it to one person.
The letter is written to CEI, and at the bottom of the letter is the copies of the additional 3 agencies that was recommended to be sent to.
Was it sent to the president? Who's that one addressed to?
Torrance.
Okay, good. That's what I wanted because he's the decision maker in it. So we just want it to go to him and then the others.
Bottom
We'll
of
get a
that,
copy.
Commissioner Dvorak, where there's C's at the. Right here, it says that it would go to John Hawkins, the Vice President of Operations, Toby Thomas, Chief Operating Officer, and Wendy Zeely, the Local Engagement Specialist, as well. So a copy of each one of the letters will be sent to those people as well. That's why there's 5. One for our office, for our records, and then one for each of them.
Very good. Anything else on the board discussion?
No.
Move to public comment.
Any public comment at this time?
Gail Rusi, League of Women Voters. We noticed on the agenda the discussion possibly of videotaping the commissioners' meetings. And we just wanted to give our support for that. We have, I've been covering these meetings for 5 years. And although there's several news media individuals here and private group that posts a video, it is, I think, really important to have a public video posted because there's really no substitute for being able to see for yourself what is happening. So we really urge you to continue to practice. There's 150 people that look at it every week, and I'm sure that will be growing. So thank you for doing it, and I hope you continue doing it.
Thank you for your comments. Anybody else? Go ahead.
I'm Steve Harrison, Country Oaks Trail. Last week I saw for the first time the video and I found it easy to access. Was grateful it was available. The meeting did go long. When I logged in, there were 23 people watching, and at the end of the meeting, the comment was there were 3 people watching. The 2-hour meeting was tedious to sit through, but people are looking at that. I'm glad it's there. So, thank you.
Thanks for your comment. There. Adjournment?
Yeah, motion to adjourn.
Second.
Aye.
Aye.